Welcome to A Grief Observed. I'm your host, Chaplain Kevin Weaver. With me today is my good friend, Tim Livingston.
Howdy, Corky.
Tim, welcome. Tim, I wanted to talk to you today about something I'm seeing at the end of life with people, and I'm calling it the phenomenon of the celebration of life as opposed to the funeral. Your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on that are essentially, in my opinion, I think that they are synonymous terms. I think that the celebration of life that people are trying to celebrate these days truly are the funeral or memorial service. To me, they're one and the same, but people will try to move away from the funeral because they think the celebration of life just might be something a little easier for them to attend and try to bypass some of those important grieving steps that they need to go through.
And that's what I'm noticing. It seems as though people are trying to make it easier when, because I mean, the celebration of life usually is in a setting where the body is not present, and an urn's not present. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to belittle that. Obviously, people want to celebrate the life of the loved one. But what I'm hearing you saying is that the funeral, the body present, the urn present, is the celebration of life.
It is, We are stopping and we are remembering a life that was well lived.
So it's by not having, and I want to get to the importance of having the body, the person present, whether it be in a casket or an urn. It seems, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems as though we're kind of avoiding or stopping a process. In other words, from taking that person all the way to the very end, the committal, the burial. There's
a new book out. It's called The Good Funeral, and I think I've given you a copy of that.
You did.
It talks about the importance of our society, where we have moved away from accompanying the body to the final place of rest. And in other cultures, that is so much part of the grieving process, is accompanying that body from the funeral to the final resting place, or from the funeral to the crematory. You know, making that a public event so people can come and accompany the body to its final place of rest.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense, accompanying the person, the body, to the final place of rest.
And have that little ceremony, little service there too. Part of saying goodbye and letting go. So, I have found that many times, as a funeral home owner, I do own also the only crematory in all of the White Mountains, called White Mountain Crematory. It's right at my Show Low property here at the Owens Livingston Mortuary. And many times people will come in and make their arrangements, and they will only want to plan for a they will only want to plan for a cremation service with no memorialization at all. However, I counsel them, if you will. I will talk to them about what they can do, whether or not they choose to have a funeral in my building or at their church. That's entirely up to them. But if they don't, I do suggest that they have some sort of gathering with their family, with their friends, either at their home or out at a park, just someplace where they can gather and again stop and recognize a life that was well lived. And that can be their memorial service / funeral service / celebration of life.
I'm thinking that it might have something to do with how I used to view funeral directors, funeral homes. When we first met,
I remember.
We weren't the best of friends, and we have become very good friends.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was very skeptical of funeral directors, funeral homes, because in my mind, my point of view, I always saw people at a very vulnerable place in their life, and a funeral director using that vulnerability to make a sale.
Understand. And I could tell you, again, I don't know what your experiences were before I met you, but I could tell you what my experiences are with the families that we serve. We are a business, yes, but our main priority is working with the family, working in them through their grief, making things as easy as we possibly can for them. Not just as far as the logistics of a service go, but also financially. The last thing I want to be is a financial burden to anybody.
Right.
And if they want to listen to what I have to share with them, they'll be very happy with what I shared with them, because they will not have overspent, or they will not have bought something that they cannot afford for the most part. And it's very individual,
Right.
and it's not all about the money.
Right.
Ours is a service, ours is a labor truly of love.
You know, Tim and I, before we came on, we rehearsed this.
A little bit, slightly.
When I said what I said, Tim was going to fire right back at me.
I was.
So fire back at me.
Well,
I'm ready.
And why did you have that opinion of funeral personnel?
Honestly, I don't know where the opinion came from. Maybe it was just something I created. But I do know when and how the opinion changed. Tim and I were talking at lunch one day, and he told me about how when you go in to prepare a body,
Yeah.
how you go in reverently. Spiritually, and that you have a prayer or a type of a ritual
Yeah.
that you go through. And you know, Tim, when you shared that with me, something changed in my spirit. I saw you as a caregiver, a spiritual caregiver, and I then over the months and years I began to watch you very closely and your staff, and I noticed, you know, these guys aren't all about the money. They really care about everything from the planning, the preparation, although I've never been in a preparation room with you. Law would forbid that, but you told me about these rituals and what you go through. That changed my view of you, friend. It really did.
Well, I appreciate that, and like I said, it's a service of love. I firmly believe what I do at work and what my staff does at work is kind of sacred and spiritual by nature. And whenever I begin that preparation of a body through the embalming process or what have you, I will, usually I'm in there by myself, will begin with a word of prayer, just asking the Almighty to bless the procedure that I'm about to perform, that everything will go well, and that the family will be well pleased when everything is said and done.
And you know, Tim, that's why I wanted you here today to talk about this, because I want people to understand that this is an extremely spiritual time in those who are standing around's lives, and to admit some of the process I think is a difficulty.
Yeah.
And you know, something else, we actually just have a couple of minutes left. Really time has flown. But you told me a story, or you have a story, a flower story.
Oh,
and I
my
want
heavens.
you to share that.
Yeah, we were talking about rituals and things, but we have our fraternal organizations, the BPOE, the Elks, the veterans groups, the Moose Lodges, just all those fraternal organizations where the dead or the deceased who was a member of that group has every right, R-I-G-H-T, to have those particular individual funeral rights,
Yes.
R-I-T-E-S,
Yes.
to be delivered at their memorial, at their funeral service. But I remember several years ago when I was living in Napa, California, I was serving my apprenticeship there. We had a little old lady who would come to all of our services, or of all of her friends, I should say. She would hand pick flowers from her own garden. She'd wrap them in tin foil and carry them in. Those were her token. Those were her expressions of sympathy to the families that she was there to visit. And one day she was coming through our doors, and our mortuary had a big glass door, probably 9 feet tall, with a big solid bronze frame around it. And I would be opening and closing the door for everybody. And she came in, tears were just streaming down her face. And Mr. Wigger, who I was working for at the time, says, "Oh, honey, what's wrong?" And she says, and she's carrying her flowers, "Oh, They don't want my flowers.
Oh.
They don't want my flowers. Well, why do you say they don't want your flowers? Well, in the obituary notice it said, in lieu of flowers, send contributions to da 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 da.
Oh, my
They don't want my
goodness.
flowers. Of course, we assured her that they in fact do want their flowers. Please come in and hand them their flowers, because they will love them. They will appreciate them nonetheless.
Wow.
And that's a story that I have never forgotten. And rarely when I write my obituaries for families, I try to steer clear of the term in lieu of flowers, because then you're telling everyone they cannot send flowers. When in reality, truly it should be their choice to send flowers or contributions to whatever organization or group should be in receipt of those special contributions.
Wow. Tim, thanks for sharing. I mean,
Yep.
that's powerful stuff. And actually,
I have a million stories like that.
well, we'll get together again. Tim, I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your professionalism. I really appreciate your spiritual care for our families here in the White Mountains.
Yep.
When we come back in just a couple of minutes, we're going to discuss with another guest. Lori Eyre will be with me. We're going to discuss in lieu of flowers. Okay, thanks. Welcome back to the show. Joining us now is Lori Eyre.
Hi.
Hi, Lori. Great to have you today. You work for the Morning Rose, right?
I do.
What's the Morning Rose?
It's a wonderful flower shop. It opened up last August, and the Lord led me to go down there to see if they needed help, and it was just perfect timing.
They needed help.
Yes, they did.
Thank
I
goodness.
love it.
Well, you know what, and of course I'm in and out of there frequently, and you really do look like you love it. And so they're a wonderful flower shop. Lori, what I want us to address is our previous guest, Tim. He was talking about a woman who loved to bundle up flowers that she grew in her flower garden and bring them as a gift or a final gesture to grieving families. And she read in the paper that they said, in lieu of flowers, send your contributions. Now, I don't want to completely disregard that. I think that some people, it is important that contributions are sent to favorite charities and such. However, it seems to me that we're seeing more and more and more in lieu of flowers, and it disturbs me a little bit, because especially Tim's story, people want to give that one last gesture. And what a beautiful way then to send a flower.
It is.
What are your thoughts on that?
It is. Well, I just know the response that we've seen from people. They love flowers. I mean, they're like just a luxury gift that people don't have to give. But it shows your care and concern about them, that you're thinking of them, their loved ones. And I had an experience not too long ago at a church where they were having a funeral service, and we took 22 pieces.
Goodness.
Yes, 22 large funeral sprays, all different kinds, and there were already a few there. And the wife of the deceased was just absolutely overwhelmed with gratitude, and that so many people thought of her and her husband, that her husband was so well thought of, and it really ministered to her heart and a lot of people.
So the flower really is a beautiful gesture to tell the person that you're thinking about them. Because you know what I've noticed is, I've never noticed anybody that, kind of commenting that, oh, there aren't enough flowers here.
Right.
People don't really say there aren't enough. They don't fuss about that. However, when the flowers show up, they really do seem to be appreciative and thankful for that.
Right.
And, it seems like it should go without saying.
Right.
Funerals, flowers. But I do a lot of memorials and a lot of funeral services throughout the community, and I just don't notice the flowers that I used to when I was a child growing up. I mean, what is the history of the flower at the funeral?
Well, I think originally they were just sent to well, actually originally what I was told, I think by Tim actually, was that they were sent to help cover up the scent of death. And that's like the way far back history. But now they're just a sign, I believe, of just honoring the deceased person. And I believe people really appreciate the heart of the person that is sending those flowers, that person, it's not a waste of money as some people might think, because yes, the flowers are going to die, but you know, it's a gift. It's a gift. It's the last thing they can do for somebody.
And I like that thought, and that's what I want people to hear today. It's a gift. It's a last gesture. Certainly with the technology and the techniques today, well, we don't have those horrid scents that we used to. We don't have to cover up the smells
Right,
anymore. But
right.
the flowers are so beautiful, and they mean so much to people. And for me also, it has to do with maintaining rituals and traditions. That's what Tim and I were talking about. Seeing the body all the way through to its final resting place. And there's nothing more precious or spiritual to me than at a graveside watching the family come at the end when the minister has spoken his last word, taking a flower and tossing it in on the grave. I mean, it's beautiful. It does. It's a last beautiful final gesture.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and there's
It
something
is.
to be said for that. We've got to find a way to maintain traditions and rituals in our culture. You know, you said something else I wanted to address, and it has a lot to do with letting that person know, that family know, that you're thinking about them. I am the great Valentine's Day poo-pooer. I always tell my wife, flowers, they're not that important. It's just big business. You know, it's our love all year long, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? When I do send a flower, because she tends to agree with me, but I think she just does that because she's nice and she's loving. But you know, when I send the flower, she loves it.
Absolutely.
And it means a lot. And you told me this the other day. You said what it sends is the message that I'm thinking about you.
Right. And I care about you so much that I'm going out of my way and I'm going to buy flowers for you. I mean, it's like I say, it's a luxury thing that people don't buy for themselves very often. But I believe the thought and the heart behind the flowers are way more important than the flowers. And that's what people are really appreciate.
You know, it seems like a given, but it's not. If you've attended, of course, you're in and out of the funeral home a lot, you just don't see the flowers pouring in. People aren't carrying them in. I would encourage friends and family members. It doesn't have to be at a funeral.
No.
Any occasion.
Right.
Pick up a flower. And honestly, I'm not here. This is not to promote the flower shop, although the Morning Rose is a wonderful place. I encourage you folks to go in and visit. But my purpose is to remind people that there are little things that can be done to help let the person know you're thinking about them, to remember them, and really most importantly, to be engaged in one final act of giving. Now, Lori, I'm guessing, not because of looks, just because I do know you a little bit, we're about the same age. And we grew up in the 60s, and I have a prop.
Yes.
Where's my prop? I want to use it. Remember in the 60s? You got a picture of this? The flower power revolution?
Oh, yes.
There's something to be said about flowers, the importance of it, the gesture, the thoughtfulness, not trying to take away from those who want to contribute to charities, but that final act, that ritual has to be maintained. What do you think about maintaining rituals? I mean, am I all washed up, or is this something that we really need to kind of get back to and focus on?
Well, I again think that people really appreciate other people going out of their way and spending money on flowers to send to them. That I saw the heart of that woman. She just began to cry at that funeral when she saw all of that outpouring of support and love for her husband. She just was overwhelmed. I didn't know that it affected people that way.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of people think, well, they're just going to die. The flowers are just going to die anyway, and you know, why send flowers to a funeral? But I saw how touched that woman was. She just was overwhelmed that so many people in the community thought that much of her and her husband, and just the support behind it.
Yeah. And truth be known, it doesn't have to be that expensive.
No, it doesn't. You can spend as little or as much as you want. And honestly, my favorite reason that when I've seen people come in our shop and buy flowers, my favorite reason that blesses me the most is when they come for no reason at all, but they just want to bless somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody, they love their wife, or they love their grandmother, or somebody. I've had a young man come in 20-something and wanted to buy a rose for his grandmother. You know, it doesn't have to be expensive, and because he loves her and he wanted to bless her.
Yeah.
And you better believe that blessed his grandmother.
Oh, I
know?
should say so. You know, and also you guys gave us an idea not long ago. My daughter-in-law was caregiver for an elderly woman up in Pine Top, and she had died, and so we were on our way to visit with the family in the home while the body was still in the home, and we came into your shop and said, what can we do? What can we bring them? And Dawn suggested that we bring a corsage. And Rose was able to take that beautiful corsage, and she went over to her friend's body. She delicately pinned the corsage on her chest. And what a beautiful image of this beautiful woman, though she was deceased, laying there with this beautiful flower next to her. You know, it does make a huge difference. And, you know, again, I hope people aren't just skeptical like I used to be. Oh, it doesn't really matter. It's just a flower. But it is just a flower.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and like you say, it's a final act that you can do for somebody. And really, it's more for the living, because, of course, the deceased doesn't know about them. But that final act that you can do in honor of that deceased person is for the family and loved ones.
How true. And, you know, I find in grief counseling, oftentimes people, friends and family, eventually they kind of tend to pull away. You know, what do I say? How do I respond to my friend or to my loved one that has just suffered this great loss in their life? And often, I mean, I tell everybody all the time, you don't really have to say anything. Just go be present. And what a beautiful gesture to show up, just to hand a flower.
Absolutely.
Set the flower down next to them, get up and go on your way.
Absolutely.
It speaks volumes.
It does. It really does.
Wow. Yeah, this is amazing. I wasn't so sure that we could even spend 10 or 12 minutes talking about the value and importance of flowers. And we can go further. Our time is just about up. But, you know, since you're here, tell me real quick a little bit about the Morning Rose. What is it that you guys offer?
Wow. Well, we do just about everything. We have flowers for all occasions, for not just funerals, but weddings and birthdays, of course, anniversaries. We do silks, silk arrangements, silk wreaths, drieds, and anything in fresh flowers. Plus, we have lots of gift ideas. We make up gift baskets. We make up just about anything you can think of. And Dawn is she's the shop manager. She's incredibly talented, and I just love her. But she will go out of her way to get every customer just what they want. You know, there's nothing that she won't do. She's really good. And if you just have an idea what you want to do, she'll give you more ideas and help you put something together.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Lori, thanks for sharing the importance of flowers, a tradition, a ritual that we should begin to and remember to participate in. It is a way to tell our loved ones that we're thinking about them. This has been A Grief Observed. I really do thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you again next month.